Mr. Wild, thanks a lot for joining us.
My pleasure. Just to clarify, I helped Mrs. Trump during the campaign clarify her immigration status. I've represented the Trump organization for over a decade, the Trump models, the Miss Universe, when Mr. Trump owned it as well.
Right.
But I'm here to talk about the order that happened less than an hour ago.
So, I mean, there are many ways to criticize this and to support it. And I guess the one that annoys me the most, because I think it's the least true, is the claim that this is specifically legally excluding Muslims. The order, as you know, since you've read it, says that we give priority to the victims of religious persecution, to religious minorities. We did that for decades during the Cold War with Jewish refuseniks in the Soviet Union. And we said, look, you're persecuted, and they sure were, and we're going to put you to the front of the line in coming to the United States. We've done this a lot of different times. Why is this different? Christians really are being singled out for persecution in those regions.
A few statutory reasons, a few constitutional predicates. First, statutory. The 1952 Walter McCarran Act, the Immigration Act, allowed the president to suspend immigration in the event of emergency, but in 1965, it clarified that a president and Congress cannot actually discriminate based on national origin. There's a statutory argument. The constitutional argument, well, we believe, or historically, equal protection doesn't allow itself to our shores until it hits our shores. In other words, there's no entitlement to have a visa. There's no entitlement to constitutional protection until you come to the United States. I disagree with it, but that's the stated law. The truth be told, there is a state's right, which was supported just now in the temporary restraining order by a federal judge in that jurisdiction, that recognizes Amazon has an Iraqi employee. The local school have foreign students.
Right.
There are a lot of people that are impacted, and there's a federal or fundamental right for individuals to travel, and that was impeded. The Trump lawyers just relied on, I think, the most egregious of our national history, the Chinese Exclusion Acts and the internment of the Japanese. We have to get past this chapter. I believe in my heart, Tucker, that this president...
You've thrown a lot of things out here. Okay,
I believe in my heart the president is a patriot and he's trying to make us safe. But if you're going to selectively choose 7 countries, and you're going to stop people midstream, green card holders. I have titans of industry right now stuck in third country nations because they can't get back because they were born in Iran. And they're American permanent residents.
And I have no doubt that that's true, and it must be deeply frustrating, and green card holders are now apparently exempted, as you know.
But it wasn't a week ago.
You're right. You're absolutely right. I would never defend that. That was silly, but it's apparently been fixed. But let's just get back to something you said a second ago.
Sure.
You don't think that due process, as guaranteed under the Constitution, should be just restricted to American citizens, or you think that citizens of foreign countries ought to be able to sue the United States because they're barred entry or because they don't get services from the U.S. government? Like, what is that?
This is your show, and I am honored to come back another time and debate that. I'm here to opine on the decision. The decision said that the states had an issue.
Okay, historically, look, that's central to this.
Let me answer your concern. Lawyers do not have, you have no right to counsel at the airport, even though you've made an admission into the United States physically with your feet on the ground. You go to secondary inspection, there's no right to a lawyer at the border. You don't have constitutional protections generally. But there is a right, and the state has asserted, and the federal judge believes in this instance that they're going to sustain an argument in the long term. And by the way, Tucker, and for everyone watching this is going to be like DACA. This injunction is going to stay while it goes to the Supreme Court, and it's going to take months to kind of work this out. And I hope the president and Congress come up with another alternative. But we see how impactful immigration is on our commerce, and the fact that states are setting up, Marbury versus Madison, supremacy clause, all the wonderful things we teach students in law school, that this is a federal matter. You know what? Immigration has a great impact. It's not only an entrepreneurial and an engine for our economy, but people care about it now. From our first lady,
you've said so many things that it's hard for me to pin down anyone, but I just want to get back to the core question, which is, do the residents of foreign countries, non-U.S. citizens, have a legal or moral claim on coming here? Or is that entirely up to the discretion of the U.S. government and its citizens? And I think most people would imagine the second is true. You're arguing that the former is true. And I think that's not a mainstream position.
There is no entitlement to come to America. The statute itself has a presumption that everybody wants to live here, and it's your burden when you come to our shores to prove that you're actually going to leave. However, once a person is given a visa, once they have ties that are very strong in the United States, and once they have been accorded a visa and they have other equities that have developed here, it's a different game. And you want to know something? It's 2017, Tucker.
Okay, I know the year, but doesn't that cast us as kind of passive, us being Americans, as passive participants in this process? Shouldn't we be able to say, and why don't we assert the right to say, we want these people in our country. We think they're going to help our country. They'll succeed here. We don't want these people. We don't think they will. Why is that an immoral desire? Most other countries around the world run their immigration that way.
Here. The plenary power of making laws is vested with Congress, not with our president, who's now going to experiment in a way to keep us safe. Uber vetting of just 7 countries when Indonesia and Saudi Arabia, 16 of the 19 hijackers hailed from Saudi Arabia. 11 million plus people here unlawfully, and we're going to beat up on 7 people with the prayer that the rest of the Muslim world will not come in?
Should we add Saudi Arabia to the list? I mean, what is your point?
I don't think it was a comprehensively thought or executed plan,
well,
and it certainly wasn't constitutional.
True, but since you and I get to comment on it after the fact, do you think we should add Saudi Arabia and, as you said, Indonesia to the list? Like, what are you saying? Or should we just assume that all countries and their citizens pose an equal threat to us? Do you think that is true?
I think
are the citizens of Finland as much a threat to us as the citizens of Saudi Arabia? Like, can we draw those distinctions, or are we not allowed to?
We shouldn't be drawing distinctions with Lady Liberty, but a few miles from this studio that I'm sitting in, with a beacon to those tired and huddled masses. We should not be stopping to take people
again.
in.
I love the poem.
Let me say, we fought pirates and we took in refugees in the 1700s. ISIS can be put down without losing our national character and vibrance of immigration.
But that's not a serious point. I mean, I love immigrants. Actually, I mean it, and we're all the grandchildren of them. But I mean, like, we should be able. It's up to us, right? Not to the Statue of Liberty.
It's up to us to get this right, to be safe, and to go forward and not discriminate.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure.
This story is continuing to break, and of course, we'll continue.